It's 5:05. I will call to order the regular meeting of Brattleboro Housing Partnerships. The agenda for the meeting, to review the minutes from the meeting of May 24th. And are there any corrections, alterations? It was in your packet. Hearing no corrections, do I have a motion to approve the minutes as circulated?
I so move.
Thank you, Byron. A second?
A second.
Thank you, Alicia. All those in favor, please say aye. Put your hand up.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Abstentions? Passed by 4 votes. The resident and community participation. Do we have any residents present on Zoom? Next is okay. The next is the COVID-19 updates.
Sure. So I will give a quick update. I did not submit anything in the packet because I knew things were changing pretty rapidly. But I will let the board know where we're at presently. And so with the state of emergency ending, Brattleboro Housing Partnerships also made some changes. We initially changed, had masks. We asked that residents continue to wear masks while in buildings. However, this past Friday, we have allowed residents who are fully vaccinated to not wear masks if they choose not to, and rely on residents to decide for themselves, to make if they decide to not wear a mask, they should only not wear a mask if they've been fully vaccinated. And however, our staff will continue to wear masks in apartments, in common areas, and in office spaces when we meet with outside people. Staff are allowed to not wear masks when they're in the office with other staff if they're fully vaccinated at this point for meetings. But we did identify that. Oh, Donna's coming.
Okay.
Our guest in first. Hi, Donna.
Hi. Sorry about that. I don't know what was going on, whether it was the internet or what it was, but
But
anyway.
you're here. So glad you're
You're
here.
here. Thank you. So I was just giving the COVID update. So we, as of last Friday, we put out notice that residents, if they are fully vaccinated, can be without a mask in common areas and in the community room spaces, although people who are not vaccinated should continue to wear masks. However, we don't check, we don't ask. And we have decided that staff will continue to wear masks when they're meeting with residents in closed spaces like a community, an office, or when they're meeting with going into apartments, et cetera, because we clearly know that, the staff of Brattleboro Housing Partnerships are in a position of power, and people may feel like they don't have the right to ask for people to wear a mask or feel comfortable. And so we wanted to make sure that people wouldn't be put in the situation where they were with someone without a mask if they didn't feel comfortable with that. So we did say that for group programming, staff that are fully vaccinated can be without a mask because some of those programming involve food and different activities. So, but that allows the resident to be aware that somebody would be without a mask in that space. But like for common areas, you never know when you're going to run into someone. So that is our policy for now, and we'll continue to review weekly as that changes. If there's any other updates. But so far, our staff has not complained.
Wonderful. Have residents been anxious about it?
I haven't heard anything one way or the other. I haven't heard residents, I think that some residents would prefer that people wear masks and some residents are totally think, it's weird that we're still wearing masks. So it's just hard to know. And so I think at this point, it's weird and we're just, it's not hurting anyone to continue to wear a mask at this point.
Number 5 on our agenda is moving to work, AKA Brattleboro Housing Opportunities. And here's where I hope Jeanette White is part of this discussion.
So I asked Jeanette to join us. So I think I informed the board at the last meeting that I had asked Jeanette to help us with this process a little bit because we were really feeling like our staff just didn't have the time and the bandwidth to really dive into this the way we needed to. And so Jeanette has offered to do that. And in this process, she's made the recommendation that we move a little quicker in adopting the agreements. And so I'll let her speak to that a little bit.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks. So I watched all the some webinars and did all the training and everything because I know that when people were doing it, they were being distracted by phone calls from residents and phone calls from other people and just couldn't devote the time. So I looked at everything and came to the conclusion, and my recommendation to Christine was that you not wait till August to sign and submit the ACC. The ACC is your agreement with them that you will be a moving to work agency.
They call it the
put in
annual
your
contributions contract.
What?
They call it the annual contributions contract.
Yes, sorry about that. Thank you, Janet. So all this does is says, yes, we've accepted being a moving to work agency. This doesn't tie you to any actions or anything or any timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So Christine and I have gone over a potential timeline, which you might not want to get into in detail tonight, but we've laid out kind of a suggested timeline that will get you to submitting what's called the supplemental plan, which is what defines what you're going to be doing and when you're going to be doing and how you're going to be doing it by late fall.
Okay.
But so and it takes, if you sign this tonight, and most of this is, as you could see from the forms, most of it is just standard HUD forms that you are agreeing to. You're agreeing to do this. There's one in there that if you decide not to be a moving to work agency anymore, what you have to do to get out of it. And then the important thing that you're signing here is the board resolution, which says that, yes, you as a board are supporting becoming a moving to work agency, and you're authorizing Christine to sign papers as the representative. That's basically what the ACC does. Then you submit it to HUD, and it takes them about 30 days to review it because of their timelines. And so the thought is that by the end of July, they would have that returned to you, and then you would officially be a moving to work agency.
Good. Questions?
That makes sense.
I move we approve signing it.
Should we make a motion?
And just for your information, this has to have wet signatures.
So,
But I think only Janet has to sign it.
Yeah, but it does
I'm
require
happy
that wet signature.
I'm happy to.
I don't know why we call it that, but
Wet signatures, and I hadn't
I
heard
know.
that before.
that is what we call it.
One thing before I ask for motions is how will you see it changing us initially after we sign this?
You mean how will signing this and submitting this
Yes.
change? It will, the only thing it will do is it will allow some flexibility to begin with the use of funds.
Well,
There are
that's just
certain-
my understanding, but I wanted to hear
Right.
you say it.
Yep. There are certain funds that you'll be able to start moving about without having to submit the supplemental plan. But yes, that is how it will change you. Other than that, it shouldn't make any changes at all.
Other members of the board have questions?
No, it sounds good to me.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, may I hear a motion for board approval? Please, Liz.
I move that we accept the, what language do you want me to use?
To adopt,
See.
They adopt the moving to work program and have Janet sign on it.
Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Donna. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Any abstentions? The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
you.
And I promise to not melt, but to go up to the office and sign it tomorrow.
And we will be, I will be reaching out to board. So part of our initial, some of the initial work we'll be doing will be arranging small group meetings with some of our core partners. And so I will be reaching out to board members to see if individual board members would like to participate in individual meetings, depending on what your, maybe what your background is. I sort of have some ideas of who might fit into which category best, so.
Okay. I'm ready to move on to staff reports, review, property managers report. From Courtney and Jen Short.
Sounded like things were moving right along
Mhm.
in this report.
This is where I always like to look at the percentage collected or not collected.
Yeah.
And Ledgewood is particularly problematic. But my understanding is Ledgewood and Moore Court are where the residences where people are applying to the state of Vermont for assistance for
Yes.
rent problems,
Yes.
rent problems.
The VRAP program. So we have, and I have put this later in the agenda, but I'm happy to speak to it now. So as you look at the amounts, and you look at what's not collected,
Mhm.
those continue to go down every month because
Yes.
the balances are continuing to go up. And so, it doesn't necessarily mean that less people are paying rent every month. It means that those big balances are starting to really accrue and become a big deficit. And
Yes.
so we do have a plan in place. We spoke to our attorney at length about steps to support families in trying to get these balances paid down. And so we started by sending, we've sent everybody in the whole organization, whether they owe money or not, VRAP and reach up flyers to every resident to really explain the programs that they may be eligible for. And we started this week sending notices to residents who owe back rent. People who owe more than $1,000, we are going to be sending them notices to termination notices, but with some time attached to that. So the moratorium for eviction is, so this was last week, the moratorium for eviction has now been pushed out a little farther. And so once we are able to, we'll be sending notices that have a 30-day before they expire. And that also gives people up to 60 additional days to apply for these programs and to get back, if they're saying they're applying to these programs, then we'll continue to work with them. So we're doing our best to work with folks until we get to that point. But there are some people that just we're not hearing anything back from that have huge balances. And so I have a feeling that as things get closer, we'll start to hear more information, but we have been in touch with, we have been giving information out about who can support them through this process, and we have staff in place in case that we need to have additional support for them to fill out some of these forms.
Doesn't seem that you can do much more.
I really don't think we can. I really don't. We really can't. We can't apply for them. We can't use any federal money to pay their rent.
Mhm.
So we just do the best we can in supporting them to apply for these funds themselves.
Will most of them qualify for state funds?
I'm not sure. I think that they probably will once they get in there. They might get an initial rejection letter, and then we've found that people appeal and then they have gotten funds. So, I'm not sure at this point, but I'm hopeful that they will.
Great.
It takes some work, and to be fair, it's a program that has some. I think that they're doing the best that they can at Vermont State Housing for sure, but it's a little bit slow. So I'm hoping that things will proceed over time, and we'll be able to get those funds.
Great. Any more questions on that?
Yeah,
We'll move. Oh, yes, Byron.
who is helping residents with those applications?
Someone from
Evka?
SEVCA, and also Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, their home ownership program. I think they applied for some additional funding to have someone support people with this piece. Jeremy Paquette and also Susan Howe from SEVCA. So those are the two places that we're really sending people. But we have support staff as well that's been helping people at our end. So we have, Lorelei, our resident service, our wellness and services manager, as well as the SASH program, have worked with people.
We're just about to come to Lorelei's report on resident wellness and services, the pink sheets.
I think she's done an amazing job keeping going during COVID.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the sash flash, as always, is both good looking as well as interesting.
I was very interested in the items about men.
Mhm.
Men's health. We look a lot at women's health, but we don't always look in more detail at men's health. But I thought this is very good for people to know about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So Christine, we do have a nurse or we don't have a nurse? I'm confused by that.
So it's actually a great question. So perfect timing. So we did interview someone last week, and I can't confirm 100%, but we're 99% sure. She said that she would like the program, she would like to take the position, and the SASH coordinators also agreed. So we do have someone confirmed that she will start. We haven't given her the formal okay, so I don't want to say it publicly, but we have put that in place. In the meantime, they've done an excellent job working with the resources they've had. So they've gotten some support from the SASH nurse at Valley Cares, and Valley Cares has really partnered with us to offer the nurse to our program for some additional hours. They've also utilized the statewide nurse from the SASH program, who's sort of like a sub when you're without a nurse. And so both Jake and Shauna have done a great job of really substituting that while we haven't had someone on staff. And so I'm really excited. Actually, the person who will be joining has a lot of experience. I think many of you will know her when she joins, and will be excited to know who she is. But I just don't want to say it publicly until it's 100%.
Well, it certainly pauses the mind to realize that the hospital couldn't offer us a nurse.
Yes,
Because
yes.
we
Or
thought
Biata. We reached out to the home health agencies as well. And, and we also have a person who's going to fill the role formerly FSS that we're now calling the Education and Employment and Education Coordinator. And so we have someone for that position who will be starting as of July 6th.
Oh, that is good news.
It is
I
great.
like the, I want to comment that I think that the education and, let's see, the other addition, employment, education and employment says very clearly what it is rather than family self-sufficiency.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good news.
Has anything come of the interview for Vista volunteer?
We were very close. We had someone who was interested and they were deciding between two organizations and they picked the other organization. And so Lorelei, we were all very disappointed. So we're still trying our best to find somebody.
Good.
And housing choice voucher program, shelter plus care and transitions to housing. I think David is here to share that with us.
I'll let him take it away.
Not going to go far.
Right.
So what I want to just share with you all is an update on the Transitions to Housing program. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's a program that the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships developed back in 2005 when I was the new kid on the block. And since then, the program has been incredibly successful in assisting homeless families. The program has morphed in the last, I'd say 10 years specific to address family homelessness. Initially, the grant was funded through the state of Vermont General Fund, Agency of Human Services, Secretary's Office. It was an annual grant that just kept getting renewed. And then a few years ago, the Agency of Human Services General Fund folks said, why are we doing this? We have another entity known as the Office of Economic Opportunity that oversees a myriad of other housing subsidies and supportive service programs throughout the state. And that program is known as the Housing Opportunities Program, HOP, which is administered by the Office of Economic Opportunity. It's a subset of the Department of Children and Family Services. So that brings us to who's driving the bus financially with the Transitions to Housing program. The program's intent is still in serving homeless families, primarily that are getting supportive services by way of the Winston Prouty Center and their family supported housing program. The grant funding for us is solely for rental assistance, administration of the rental assistance, and just since we started with the Office of Economic Opportunity, money was put back into the budget that would provide funding for extenuating circumstances, broken windows, unpaid rent, flooded basements, flooded living rooms, risk pool money.
David, all of these people are housed in the community and not in Brattleboro Housing Partnership.
That is correct. All of those in the Transitions to Housing program would be leasing with a private landlord in the community. We do not have a formal preference for these families who are successful in the program after 24 months to be offered a Brattleboro Housing Partnership subsidy, but we have an informal preference in which if I know that there's someone who is very successful in the Transitions to Housing program and is coming up for a screening for a Brattleboro housing subsidy, they get a rave review by me. We cross the T's and dot the I's, and they are very successful. I would probably say that close to 60% of the transitions families that we have had in the program over the last 16 years are leased with the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships and are very successful tenants in our properties. Some may be continuing supportive services. Some may be flying solo and being very successful at that. And that was the whole intent of the program. But what brings me here this evening is that this year, in the advent of COVID and all the other mega homeless dollars that have hit the state coffers in the last 6 months or so, our grant for transitions to housing this year was only refunded at 40%. And the cause célèbre from the Office of Economic Opportunity is that there are several other pools of funds for homeless families in the state of Vermont. And they felt that it would be best to utilize those funds than allocate 100% of our request to continue with the transitions program. To share with you, and I can send this email to Christine and she can put it in your notes of the meeting. But from the Office of Economic Opportunity, I told them that I would like a list of who they think these deep pockets are going to be, because my board is going to want to know that. So they did. So to share with you all, there is what is called VRAP, that's the Vermont Emergency Rental Assistance Program. And the Office of Economic Opportunity has housing stability services paired with the funding for services through that VRAP program. So there's a deep pool of funds in the VRAP program. An ongoing program through the Office of Economic Opportunity in the last 3 or 4 years has been what is called CARES vouchers. And I shouldn't say 3 or 4 years, it's really only been about 1.5 years. So when there was initial Trump funding to address homelessness, the CARES dollars came to the state, and those dollars were allocated specific to the Department of Children and Family Services to provide rental subsidies and supportive services with the CARES vouchers. What that connect is with us in transitions is that because of the CARES voucher dollars, I was directed by our funder not to add any new families to our program as of last September 2020, so that the state could utilize the CARES voucher funding first. In addition, there's a program that has been in place with the state for a few years called Vermont Rental Subsidies. In essence, Agency of Human Services cloned our transitions program. We're very proud of that. It's very successful. And the state saw that that model was incredibly positive. So they thought, you know, why don't we do something like that statewide as well? Their framework is to provide a year subsidy, but offer multiple extensions. So in essence, it does turn into a 2-year transitional program. In addition to those 3 that I mentioned, Vermont State Housing Authority is also receiving about 100 called emergency housing choice vouchers. HUD has allocated some additional vouchers amongst every housing authority in the country. Those housing authorities in the state of Vermont that were little grains of rice said, why don't we just give this all to Vermont State and have them administer the program? So that's why then they are now the holders of approximately 99 housing choice vouchers. And I understand it's possible they're still fine-tuning the qualifications for those emergency housing vouchers, but likely to be used with families and individuals fleeing domestic violence is the primary focus. But again, that hasn't been definitively stated by them at this point. Vermont State Housing Authority is also getting an additional 500 vouchers throughout the state, as well as the program funding that we have been receiving, the Housing Opportunity Program. There are going to be other awards posted in July, and I'm informed that those may very well address housing subsidies for homeless families. So I guess in a crisis, there's an opportunity, and the opportunity is that the state of Vermont has deep pockets with a myriad of funding for homeless families. The consequence of that, seeing that we're the small grain of rice and that we're local, is that with the 40% funding that we're going to be receiving from the Office of Economic Opportunity, it in essence is going to close out the program by next August of 2022. We've been up and running for 16 years, very successful. I've had a discussion with our legislative person on the panel here this evening. So there'll be some investigating to see if maybe we can persuade the Office of Economic Opportunity to reconsider the 40% and restore 100% funding. So fingers crossed. I don't want to be the Grim Reaper, but I do want to be honest. So that's where we are.
Comments from commissioners?
It was an awfully nice piece of work by Chris Hart.
Very much so, Byron, very much.
It sounds like you're doing everything you can to move this forward.
At this point, I think we are. We'll just wait and see, and we'll keep swinging and letting our legislators know of our bane and the importance of this program specific to our community and not at the state level. We certainly can appreciate the fact that the state is addressing homelessness more than they ever have, but at the cost of 8 or 10 families in Windham County that might have to sit on a waiting list with Vermont State Housing Authority for another year and a half. We'll keep digging.
So if we're unable to, get anywhere with this, where would that leave us?
That would leave us that the program would be exhausted, and those participants that are in the program will continue to be funded until they graduate from the program. We're not going to make the homeless again, but when they run their course of 24 months in this program, when they would normally graduate anyway, then we wouldn't be adding any new participants to the program. So the program in essence would be exhausted next August, 2022.
So that 40%, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
that 40% would cover
Yes.
us until that, okay.
Yep. No, I did a calculation and projection on our subsidy payments and costs to the current number of participants that we have. Another side note to that is there are also 2 of those 5 families in the transitions programs that are being offered a mainstream housing choice voucher as well. So they may very well be able to remain in place with a permanent subsidy. They will qualify. I spoke with one this morning, and we're going to be getting together next week to review the application.
Alicia?
Would those that are currently on the waiting list, would they qualify for other programs that we could help them get connected to?
Good question. My question, back to your question, is when you say the waiting list, are we looking at the housing choice voucher section 8 wait list?
So when you were saying it's unfortunate for those 8 to 10 people that are on the waiting list.
Oh, okay. So
those-
that wait list, Alicia, that I'm speaking of is the wait list with Vermont State Housing Authority for
Okay.
their administration of a rental subsidy to the population. It would be out of our control at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And I think the reason, we're really trying to advocate to keep additional funds here is because this program works. We have a system in place. We don't have to develop a new system. And it just seems, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to start from scratch or to go somewhere else. And so we'll continue to be advocating, and I might need, to send a letter out from the board as well,
Yes.
as we go forward to say, that this is a program that we have the 3 legs of the stool in place. And so we want to continue to do the work that we've been doing. Small as it is, it has significant value to our community.
When David started describing it, the first thing I could think of was the divided attention and responsibility. So rather than clarity, oh, please take from that pot and that pot, but no indication of the kind of undivided attention that makes a program work.
Precisely.
So for right now, what I'm wondering is whether it would be useful right now for the board to have a motion of support for the continuation of this, or whether we should leave that for the July meeting for a petition, if you will, or recommendation to the agency to
Would the
restore
sooner the better work?
50% cut.
Would the sooner the better help?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
May I invite a motion from the board?
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead, Donna.
No, you go.
No.
We'll let Liz do it.
I so move that we,
David, would you like to supply language for the motion?
Okay. I'm just, my thought is that we would like to move and make the statement that the board of the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships supports 100% funding of the Transitions to Housing program in state fiscal year 2022, based on 16 years of profound success in our community to homeless families.
I so move as stated.
Second?
A second.
Just don't have me repeat it.
You're recorded.
Well, I
Good.
figured that Christine was noting all of the important language, and that's why
Right.
I asked you,
Right.
David. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Passed 5-0. Thank you for explaining all of this, David.
You're all welcome.
Yes, thank you, David.
Can I ask
Financial, go
Adjourn-
ahead, Byron.
how worried are we that when all these current federal funds start to disappear, that a lot of efforts like this one will be left with nothing?
I'm cautiously optimistic, Byron, but specifically, I guess my focus has been with this Transitions to Housing program. And I know that even after the pool of funds from COVID dries up, that we can still and always make application on an annual basis for these Housing Opportunity Program funds. Should we lose them this year, we can certainly step up and make application and go through the process again next year, or the year after, or the year after. I think those funds will continue to be there, certainly not in the degree that they are now. But for other programs in the state, you know, to have someone leave a motel and say, here's $2,500, go get a motel room somewhere. Well, that's going to last them about 41 days.
Yeah.
Then they're going to be in their tent again. They're not going to find a place to live because they're homeless. They have no supportive services. So it's going to be a hard road to hoe.
Important that we hear it and do what we can to influence those who can make a difference.
Exactly.
I'd like to move on to the financial review, the green monthly check listing.
And I'm going to step out. Thank you all.
David. Thank you for
Well,
being here.
stay cool.
Well, we'll do our best. Any questions on the check listing?
No.
No.
And then the check signing assignments.
I have a request. In July, I'm absolutely fine with, but on July 23rd,
Mhm.
I have a family funeral to go to in Boston, and I would need some help to cover that one day.
I'm certainly happy to help you with
Okay.
that. I'm likely to be here.
Thank you.
Donna, August, are you going to be able
Yeah,
to
I
do
think,
that?
well, we'll just have to come up with a system because I just can't go inside.
Right. Okay, I hear that. And Alicia, you for September.
Yes.
Okay. I'll be back up for anybody who needs it.
Thank you.
Board review of the end of the fiscal year statement.
Are we
And it's
back?
very complete, but the print is rather small, so we'll
Right.
do our best.
Very small.
Yes.
Back to the financial statement?
Mhm.
I just had one maybe silly question. The very first item in the consolidated statement,
Mhm.
tenant rental income, there's a we're in the red by $5,000.
Mhm.
Question is, why isn't there a larger deficit than that, given the size of our delinquencies?
I think that there is a larger deficit. I think that what we budgeted as rental income was lower than what we should have received. And so when we created this budget,
Okay,
if you remember, we created this budget when we first went to RAD. And so we were really unsure of how that would, we knew that we were going to need a few years to base the budget on a different type of funding, because it wasn't exactly the same as it was under the public housing. And so I think that that's part of it. I also think that we did recoup a lot of money when people applied for the CARES Act funding, which ended at the end of the year. So many people with very large deficits did get to a zero balance. It's just that they've accrued those deficits again since the new year. And so our fiscal year ended at the end of March. And so I think many people were able to pay off some of those debts. And then they've just accrued them again. And so I think it's a combination of those two pieces.
but
It is
is,
hard to remember that our fiscal year ends in March, that the state's ends the end of June. Forgive me, I interrupted you, Byron.
We also another thing to think about is when we were making the projected rental income, we projected that we might lose some income because of turnover. So we only have we were only subsidized for the 2 months, and we would lose the rental part. And we, traditionally over time, we have a lot more vacancies. We have very few vacancies throughout the year. And so I think that helped as well.
is part of the answer that when you do the budget, you take into account expected delinquencies?
We do, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We try to look at historic data, so it changes over time, especially if people's income increases as well.
Mhm. But it appears that we ended the year, it's hard for me to tell. There was a loss in the total routine expenditures. Yeah, I guess there was a loss.
Yeah, if you look at the bottom number of the net income, we were down from what we had expected. But one piece to be aware of, that this doesn't really reflect very well, is that we put money into our replacement reserves, which we should have been taking out when we did work for we had to do some capital needs work for when we went under RAD, and we actually we never took it out of the reserves. We just left it in the reserves. And so that's something that James and I have talked a lot about going forward. We'll continue to do that. I mean, it would be one or the other. So it looks a little bit less, but in reality, it doesn't show that we haven't taken anything out of the reserve. So all the money that we continue to put into reserves, we never took out. So our reserves are larger, but what it shows is net profit is lower. And so next year we'll be better at that. I think because it was the first year to RAD, we didn't really want to take out of those reserves. So we were just trying to take it out of our operating fund.
And doing all of this with the professional assistance of James and his firm has made a difference for you, Christine?
Tremendously. And I have to share something really positive with you. So this month I received the comparables for May. I received them last Friday. So that's the first time since I started as the ED that we've received our financial statements within a month. And I will say that when I started, we were 6 months behind. Wow. So it took us that long to get to where we needed to be, but we're for the first time ever, we're right on track. And so to receive those financial statements, within a month is just awesome. So it's really,
wonderful.
It's a huge testament to James, but also Billy Joe and our accounting department. I mean, they've worked really hard on efficiency. We built a lot of efficiencies in-house, and I think we're really where we need to be. So I'm very excited about that. It's taken some time.
Great.
Sure.
Any more questions on the financial reviews? Like us to move to the large projects in progress.
And I'll just make another notation too, just so you're aware. So under the administrative salaries, we have a deficit. We also, that is specifically for our development salary. So we will be recouping development fees and as well as our FEMA work fees that we haven't received yet. And so that will be offsetting that as well. That has also come out of our operating fund, but we'll be reimbursed for that.
That's great. Okay. FEMA and PDMA works begin in August.
Yeah, and so I have a little report to read. Chris sent it to me after I sent the packet. So the engineers are working on the permit submittal. I submitted the permit application on Friday. They're working on getting the bid documents out and finalizing the plans for the work under review. And Chris will be joining the board next month to discuss the plans and for the board to get a better sense of the work that's going to be done. And we're also starting to talk about how to just engaging the town again. And, this work started years ago. And so, my fear is, I think it's relevant to us, but I think a lot of people, we need to just put out a lot more information about what's going to happen next.
And Red Clover 2?
So it's continuing to move on. They are starting the finishes on the second and third floor. The elevator is almost fully installed. If it isn't fully installed at this point, it was getting close last week. And we are still expecting the certificate of occupancy for August 1st. And then that will give us the whole month of August to finish the final touches in the punch list before we have a ribbon cutting and start moving residents in September. And so we want residents to tour the building, and we really don't want, if at all possible, we want all contractors out before residents move in.
Remembering Red Clover 1, that's
that's our goal.
I assume that all the commissioners would like to tour Red Clover 2 at some point.
Absolutely, yes.
So
absolutely.
We will wait for you to tell us when it fits.
Okay, I will, definitely.
Melrose relocation, we've talked about. Operations update on open staff positions.
I talked a little bit about it earlier out of turn, but yes, we have 2 open staff maintenance positions. So we're hiring for that. We've had 2 people leave, and we can talk a little bit about in closed session, just about some of those pieces. But we we're getting less applications than we would like. We posted a position for an admin for our occupancy team, which had been approved in the budget. And we received a lot of resumes. Within a week, we had a good solid 45 and they were wonderful. And so, so I just think that it's a different job and it's just different. And so, but we're really trying hard to get some people in place to support the maintenance team. You know, those guys have been working throughout the whole pandemic, and now to be short-staffed is really hard. So.
Are there any special skills you're looking for?
I mean, overall handyman skills for sure. They also do, you know, we've been talking about contracting out for some of the pieces. We would love to get somebody in there who really understands systems.
Yep.
So that they can sort of jump in and learn. We're trying. Oh,
The internet is being somewhat spotty. Board and Commissioners business, strategic planning, which is important business.
I think we lost her.
Yes. Her face froze and her voice disappeared.
no. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna run onto my other computer, and hopefully
Okay.
that will
Thank you.
work.
And I'm just typing in the chat that we're having a demonstration of why meeting in person is an advantage. So whether that will go out or not, I'm not sure, but in any case. My computer and I have love-hate relationship and making it do what I want. Oh dear.
Christine just decided it was supper time.
She's going to her other computer with hopes that
Okay.
that will behave better.
I think I'm back. And
Wait.
can you see me? I'm
Yes,
here.
welcome
Hopefully
back.
it won't cut out again. I went to my other computer and then it was like, you're logged into this one, and I ran back. So
Oh dear.
sorry. Soon we won't be dealing with any of this.
Well, that's what I was saying. We're having a demonstration of why meeting in person is an advantage.
Right.
The strategic planning.
So
Update on
strategic
submissions.
planning, we have found, so we had 3 really strong applicants. I reviewed it with Janet and then also with staff, and then I got the opinion of several staff members as well, and they have chosen Maggie Foley, who we talked earlier in the week, and she's going to be working with us for that, and she's great. And so I'm really excited about the process. So she's actually away the next few weeks, but we're going to meet at the end of July and put the pieces together. And it aligns really well with the work Jeanette and I spoke about today for moving to work. The plan for moving to work is not the same as strategic planning, but I think there are elements that will be helpful for both. And so I think it's going to be a really nice process.
I was noting in the Reformer that Maggie Foley had just finished leading a group around housing in the community, so that she certainly will be up to date on all of the issues of that.
I think so. She has a background with Wyndham Windsor. She worked with them for some time, and she runs the Continuum of Care meeting, which is for the homeless providers, and that we're a part of as well. And so she understands that piece. So she doesn't know exactly BHP, but she's familiar enough, and she really knows the community, which I think will be helpful. And she's great at building community relations.
Would you say her name again?
Yes, Maggie Foley.
And we're at the point where I would like to welcome a motion to end this meeting so we can go into an executive session. Excuse me.
I'll make a motion to end the
Thank you.
meeting and go into an executive session.
Do I have a second?
Those will second.
Thank you. All those in favor of ending the meeting so that we can go into executive session, say aye.
Yeah.
All those opposed, abstaining, 5-0. So we will go into executive session.
Okay, and I'm gonna end the recording.
Good.